Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope you all are fine and doing well in your lives. Welcome to our new lesson. And this is your teacher, Mrs. Sonia Lared. Here is my Zoom ID 462-885-1068. Our today's lesson is based on exercise E, page number 20, titled as Composition. We are done with all the other exercises of this lesson. So let's get started to our today's topic, which is narrative or story writing. Before we move towards narrative or story writing, here is a question that what is a story? An account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. It can be fictional as well as non fictional, usually told to entertain the audience means readers. The next question here is what is story or narrative writing? It is to tell a story, whether that story is real or imaginary. Pieces in a narrative style will have characters, and through the narrative, the reader learns what happens to them. It can also include dialogue. It is basically a type of composition through which a writer can tell his or her own stories as well as the stories they imagine. Dialogue can also be included in story writing. Now, grab your pens and notebooks to take notes on the elements of a story. Our first element is setting. It can be one of the most powerful tools. You can capture your readers by describing your setting because it tells the reader where and when the story takes place. Second element is characters or characterization. The writer creates imaginary people who appear to be real to the reader. It is all about the information based on the characters. Our next element is plot. It is a series of events through which the writer reveals what is happening to whom and why. Next is conflict. Conflict is the problem in the story that needs to be resolved. From here, the suspense gets started in the story. That what is the problem and how the problem is created in the story and how it will be resolved. Next element is climax. Climax is when the action comes to its highest point of conflict. It is where the reader is thrilled with the suspense that either the story will have a happy ending or not. Our last element of the story is resolution. It comes after the climax where the story ends. It is also called as conclusion of the story. Now, let's watch a video based on the elements of the story.
Let's sing about the parts of a story. Keep them on your mind as you read and write. Beginning, middle, end, characters and setting. And what is the story mostly about? The beginning is when the story starts. The beginning is when the story starts. The middle is what happens next. The middle is what happens next. The end is the finish of the story. The end is the finish of the story. The characters are who is in the story. The characters are who is in the story. The setting is when and where it takes place. The setting is when and where it takes place. The main idea is what the story's mostly about. The main idea is what the story's mostly about. Go, tortoise, go! Never give up! You're a winner! Let's sing about the parts of a story. Keep them on your mind as you read and write. Beginning, middle, end, characters and setting. And what is the story mostly about? When you read, write, or retell any kind of story, you got to know the important parts. They're called the elements or parts of the story. Remember this song and you'll know them by heart. Let's sing about the parts of a story. Keep them on your mind as you read and write. Beginning, middle, end, characters and setting. And what is the story mostly about?
What's that story about?
Who's in it?
When and where did it happen?
How did it begin?
What about the middle?
End of story.
I hope you have enjoyed the song. By remembering this song, you can learn by heart the elements or parts of the story. Let's discuss a bit more about the story writing. Here, I have some useful hints that can be very helpful while writing a story. First one is the beginning. When you start to write a story, first of all, you have to describe the setting and characters by using adjectives, powerful verbs, and adverbs. Next is description of imaginary world. When you start to write a story about your imagination or your imaginary world, you have to describe your story in the following way. You can describe by using your five senses, like what can you see, what can you hear, what can you smell, what can you feel, and what can you taste. Third point is where do you go to in your imagination, or how do you go to your imagination? How do you reach your imagination world? Through a door, through a hole in the garden fence, or in the shed? Okay. These three are some of the reasons that where do you go to your imaginary world. From where do you go to? Through a hole, through a door, or in the shed. In your imagination, you saw a mythical creature. As you're writing a story about your imaginary world, so these type of mythical creatures can be appear can appear in your story. With the help of these questions, you can describe the situation of the appearance of mythical creature in your imaginary world. That is, where does the mythical creature appear? Do you hear a rustling in a tree? A noise from behind? Does it land in front of you? What does the mythical creature look like? From here, the middle of the story start. That is what happens next. This is the part where problems appear in the story. Think of what the creature does. First, the creature appeared in your story. Now, what happened to the creature, or what did he do to you? Does it chase you? Is it friendly? Do you help it to do something, or is it hurt? The climax. Next, after the conflict is always a climax. The climax, you have to describe the complication of problem by the help of these questions. Does it capture you? Does it take you to its lair or cave? Or do you meet a problem when you try to help it? These are some questions that will help you to write a climax of the story. Last part of the story is always ending. Ending is the part where you have to tell the readers that story ends here without writing the end. How does the problem get solved? How do you manage to escape? You have to answer all these questions in the ending of the story. So the readers must know that all problems are solved in the story, and here comes the end of the story. Remember that the reader must know it is the end of the story without you writing the end. It means that you have to write, you do not have to write the end at the end of the story. After writing the story, you must have a checklist to ensure there isn't anything left in your story. In checklist, have you remembered capital letters and full stops, powerful adjectives, adverbs and verbs, paragraphs, connectives? Connectives are usually those words that connect these sentences, like mostly, furthermore, whether, and, but. These are all called as connectives. Exclamation marks, question marks, speech marks. New line when someone speaks. You have always to start a new line when someone speaks or some other person speaks. Keep to the same person. I doesn't change to he unless there is another character. It means if you're writing a story about you, you have to write or you have to use the first person pronoun, that is I. If there is any other character in your story, then you will have to change your person, that is second person, he or she, or it can be you either. As our today's lesson is based on a spooky story. So let's gear up to watch a spooky story and observe it according to its elements.
Once upon a time, there was a little old lady who was not afraid of anything. One windy afternoon, the little old lady left her cottage and went for a walk in the forest to collect herbs and spices, nuts and seeds. She walked so long and so far that it started to get dark. There was only a sliver of moon shining through the night. The little old lady started to walk home. Suddenly, she stopped. Right in the middle of the path were two big shoes. And the shoes went clomp, clomp. "Get out of my way, you two big shoes. I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady. On she walked down the path. But behind her she could hear two shoes go clomp, clomp. A little farther on, the little old lady stumbled into a pair of pants. And the pants went wiggle, wiggle. "Get out of my way, you pair of pants. I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady, and she walked on. But behind her she could hear two shoes go clomp, clomp, and one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. Farther still, the little old lady bumped into a shirt, and the shirt went shake, shake. "Get out of my way, you silly shirt. I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady, and on she walked a little bit faster. But behind her she could hear two shoes go clomp, clomp. One pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. And one shirt go shake, shake. A little ways on, the little old lady came upon two white gloves and a tall black hat. And the gloves went clap, clap. And the hat went nod, nod. "Get out of my way, you two white gloves and you tall black hat. I'm not afraid of you," she said. And on she walked just a little bit faster. But behind her she could hear two shoes go clomp, clomp. One pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. One shirt go shake, shake. Two gloves go clap, clap. And one hat go nod, nod. By now, the little old lady was walking at quite a fast pace. She was very near her cottage when she was startled by a very huge, very orange, very scary pumpkin head. And the head went boo, boo. This time, the little old lady did not stop to talk. She did not stop at all. She ran. But behind her she could hear two shoes go clomp, clomp. One pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. One shirt go shake, shake. Two gloves go clap, clap. One hat go nod, nod. And one scary pumpkin head go boo, boo. The little old lady did not look back. She ran as fast as she could and didn't stop to catch her breath until she was safe inside her cottage with the door locked. She sat in her chair by the fire and she rocked and she rocked. It was so quiet in her cottage before on the door. Should she answer it? Well, she was not afraid of anything. So she went to the door and opened it. What do you think she saw? 2 shoes go clomp, clomp. 1 pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. 1 shirt go shake, shake. 2 gloves go clap, clap. 1 hat go nod, nod. And 1 scary pumpkin head go boo, boo. I'm not afraid of you, said the little old lady bravely. What do you want anyway? We've come to scare you. You can't scare me, said the little old lady. Then what's to become of us? The pumpkin head suddenly looked unhappy. I have an idea, said the little old lady. She whispered into the pumpkin's ear. Oh, the pumpkin head nodded, and its face seemed to brighten. The little old lady said good night, closed the door, and whistled on her way to bed. The next morning, she woke up early. She went to her window and looked out into her garden. And what do you think she saw? 2 shoes go clomp, clomp. 1 pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. 1 shirt go shake, shake. 2 gloves go clap, clap. 1 hat go nod, nod. 1 scary pumpkin head go boo, boo, and scare all the crows away. The end.
Have you enjoyed the story? It has brought smiles on your faces, right? Well, it was not a scary story for you people, but I think it was a scary story for the crows. So now I have some points to help you write a spooky story. Spooky story usually have rich describing words to build up atmosphere. Means you have to use spooky adjectives that build up the atmosphere. For example, the wind was swirling and screeching. The rotten floorboards creaked. The rain trickled down the windows. Now, here the adjectives are in the first sentence swirling and screeching. In second sentence, rotten floorboards. And in the third, trickle. Rich describing words related to 5 senses. You have to use adjectives that are related to your 5 senses. For example, it tasted like sour lemons. He could see a dark red footprint on the floor. Characters reacting with worry and fear. Always in spooky stories, there would be worry and fear. For example, the sweat dripped down his back. He whispered urgently to his friend. She stammered nervously. Next is short sentences for dramatic effect and tension. Spooky stories always have short sentences like The host was gone. The room was empty. It was quite deathly quiet. Now, as we have discussed all the important points to write a story, there's a simple story writing and a spooky story writing. If you want to write a spooky story, you have to use the words according to the story. You have to use spooky adjectives, short sentences, and the situation, the atmosphere which build up, which cause the characters to worry and fear. Now it's time to review our all concepts. First of all, we have learned what a story is. We have learned the definition of a story, that it is an imaginative or real tale to entertain the readers. Next, we came to story writing or narrative writing. That why the stories are written. It is basically the form of expressing your own imaginations or your real life incidents. Then we learnt about the elements of a story or the parts of a story. For example, setting, characters, plot, conflict, climax, and the resolution. Further, we move towards the helpful hints of the story, and lastly, we discussed what spooky stories have. Like spooky describing words, sense of fear and worry, short sentences for dramatic effect. This is all the summary of our today's lesson. Now it's time for your homework. Now come to your books, page number 20, exercise E, composition. Here they have written is Pip was very frightened by the convict. The convict was frightened when he thought Pip was pointing to his parents. Now, after remembering today's lesson, what you have to do is think of a time when you have been frightened. Was it something you saw or watched? Did something or someone make you jump? And just write about it. You have to write a story about yourself when you were frightened. Now there are three types. They have given three questions. You have to pick one of them and you have to write about that. For example, when you have been frightened, was it something you saw or watched? कि क्या आपने कभी ऐसी कोई चीज़ देखी है जिसकी वजह से आपको डर लगा हो या अचानक से आप डरे हो? और डिड समथिंग और समवन मेक्स यू जंप, या फिर किसी चीज़ ने या किसी शख्स ने आपको डर के मारे जंप करने पे मजबूर कर दिया हो. You have to write about these. This is for your homework assignment. I hope you can do it now. That's all for the today. Thank you to all of you and Allah Hafiz.